So, good morning, dear colleagues and all the present parties. Let's begin our event, which is the 7th meeting of Ukrainian geologists. So this year we celebrate 25 years. The Union of Ukrainian Geologists. It was all Ukrainian civil society organization, now just CSO. And usually civil society organizations are founded in order to unite the experts and professionals or interested stakeholders, and they work within certain group. Now, our primary idea of a union was a different idea. In Ukraine, there was a powerful geological service at the time, and the whole geological industry. So the discovery and exploration of different geological deposits was a task for different service enterprises, the facilities who produced different equipment, scientific establishments, educational establishments who were training geological experts. It was a huge industry, which was funded quite a lot back then and invested into. It was the second biggest receiver of state funds after the military. In some years, the USSR used to explore 5 times more new deposits than any other country of the world. Then the perestroika hit. The budgetary funds were cut and lost, so we had to reform and rebuild in order to save the geology and exploration industry, and that's why we created this union, to adapt it to market economy. The first meeting in 2000, where we designed and adopted the concept of transition of geology and exploration industry, transitioning from socialist planned economy to market-based economy. Then we had meetings to retain different geological assets, the primary geological kernels. Unfortunately, it didn't come to any fruition, and our geological industry in Ukraine now it is largely as in all over the world. And all the attempts to create geology exploration companies that would be the market-based companies, all these attempts led to Ukrainian companies really did not stand the competition, unfortunately, especially after the big 4 of service companies entered Ukrainian market, and they basically have 95% of the world market. It's impossible to compete with them. So Ukraine has become the part of the global market, not as a local market in itself. So as soon as we have something of the geology and exploration industry restored, it should compete on the external market, not on the existing in the loop. So that was the idea, but we were also doing all kinds of activities. We were conducting conferences. We were traveling abroad. Overall, about 300 different events we organized and conducted in 25 years. Then the biggest conference we conducted together with APG, Ukrainian Association of Oil and Discovery and Exploration. 500 delegates came from 28 countries. Then Since Ukraine at that time already became the part of the global market, our union decided to focus on adaptation of Ukrainian geologists to an international cooperation to work with the Western companies. And we created many educational programs. Western companies or partners, CSOs that have to do with geology and exploration, they sent over their experts. They were reading the lectures. And we conducted 2 big training courses for dozens of lectures for experts. Excellence courses that the Tucholsky Institute started studying from English language proficiency, learning from the Western technologies. Of course, we did also not neglect the activities that are natural for civil society organizations. And we had veteran support for geologists. We published many books over this time. So it was a powerful organization as a union of experts. Now, with the start of this large-scale war, new challenges emerged. Ukrainian geologists are spread all over the world. It's hard to get them into one specific space. So now we mostly work as a digital union. We do online events. So we have strong cooperation as members of the National Union and Federation of Geological Organizations of EU. We take up many grant-based projects that you will hear about. It's a very important work for us. We will hear today presentations from heads of Association of Geological Services of EU, also from the Federation of Geological Organizations of EU. So step by small step, our union enters IT industry. We create a platform, NGO.com. It's a global platform. And we designed the new geology, which is part of the cycle economy and cross-sectoral projects to deal with the challenges of the 24th century. So global climate catastrophe, the total pollution of our country, lack of resources, the loss of diversity. So geology is a responsible player, and that's why we have to unite other scientists and related industries around it. So we are adapting to the new situation, to the new reality, and we are well within the trends of 21st century. This 7th meeting of geologists in Ukraine, we decided to dedicate it to a big challenge that Ukraine faces. And the challenges are, well, there's the war going on, their environmental damage is being done. We signed an agreement with the US, and we don't know what is in it, what other challenges are in it. Next, science is not being funded. We need to adapt our science. We have to include it into the world scientific space. The NAK Naftogaz Ukraine is basically the only company that is doing investigation and exploration of new deposits. And in Ukraine, because the Geological Service has been working actively, we had discovered and opened 20,000 different potential deposits of 105 types of fossil minerals and resources. Of them, 3,500 are being actively developed, but this development has been going on from Soviet times. They have been privatized, these 3,500 different deposits. Mostly they are now private companies within private ownership, whereas there are new deposits that are being explored. So that's why it's very important to have this agreement signed with the U.S. that maybe gives us hope that there will be investments coming in this industry. And it's a difficult industry because environmental challenges are everywhere, social, and the projects are very long, they're financially burdensome, and unfortunately not as profitable anymore. So it's a very difficult industry, and it's good news that we have American investors which will restore our geology because it will create hopefully jobs for our specialists. So this meeting is dedicated to hearing Geological Service, the State Geological Service, and will tell us all about the state policies. We will have the speakers from Academy of Sciences, from Naftogaz Ukraine. Also, we will hear what are the challenges that they face, the environmental problems, we'll talk about that, and of course the problems of training new experts. So then the Geology Union will tell you about the new projects. So that will be the agenda for today. Since we're doing it online and offline, so we will speak about the challenges, then we'll form the work groups from these industries, from science, and we'll begin more systemic work on the concepts of dealing with these challenges. So I want to wish us all success. I want to present to you our speakers. Professor Viktor Ogel, who works in Kyiv University, Deputy Director of the Department of Oil and Gas. He will be our speaker today. So Viktor is going to have this meeting moderated. So thank you so much, and have a great success in this meeting. So dear colleagues, hello, we continue our work. For me, it's a great honor to be a moderator of this forum. Everybody, greetings who's present here, and those who listen to this broadcast online via Zoom and YouTube. So that's a difficult time that this meeting is happening, but we hope that there will be a better time for both our country and our geological industry, which is one of the foundations of our economy. So you see the agenda. I would like to urge all the speakers who will be presenting to please stay within the time limits, and I will now pass the floor to our guest from Europe, the General Secretary of EuroGeoSurveys, Julie Hollis, Dr. Julie Hollis. Please, Madam Hollis.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I will just share a few slides with you for my presentation. Okay, so on behalf of EuroGeoSurveys, which is the Geological Surveys of Europe, thank you for the opportunity to give some opening remarks at this Conference of Geologists of Ukraine. My name is Julie Hollis, and I'm the Secretary General of EuroGeoSurveys. This is an organization that's more than 50 years old and represents 37 member European Geological Survey organizations, including the Geological Survey of Ukraine, SGSSU, and represented at our meetings by GeoInform. Amidst the profound challenges you are facing, the dedication and expertise of Ukraine's geological community remain a beacon. EuroGeoSurveys stands in solidarity with you, and personally I regard this conference as a testament to your commitment to advancing geological science. At the heart of EuroGeoSurveys is also, of course, science. We have 11 active expert groups and 2 task forces that are open to participation from experts from all of our member organizations, and which are seen as key benefits to our members through knowledge sharing and networking. Our expert groups work together on joint projects and support each other in addressing common challenges, including, for example, tackling the national exploration programs that are now required from member states under the Critical Raw Materials Act. EuroGeoSurveys and the Ukrainian geoscientific community have common goals and intersections where we actively work together. We were very pleased to have the presence at our 58th Directors General meeting in Krakow last week of Acting Director of GeoInform, Mr. Pavlo, and also online our National Delegate for Ukraine, Boris Malyuk. Beyond the immediate membership of EuroGeoSurveys, we also have broader connections with the Ukrainian geological community. In 2023, EuroGeoSurveys was proud to partner with BRGM and Ukrainian colleagues on the publication of a book on the strategic minerals of Ukraine and their investment attractiveness, with strong support from our Mineral Resources Expert Group. A book which, of course, is of great relevance in the current geopolitical context. In 2023, EuroGeoSurveys also entered into a Memorandum of Understanding with the Institute of Geological Sciences, National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, for the main purpose of opening our membership of our expert groups to the Ukrainian geoscientific community. And indeed, we currently have membership of Ukrainian experts in our groups for geochemistry, geological mapping and modeling, international cooperation and development task force, marine geology, mineral resources, and its national exploration programs subgroup. Our Ukrainian partners are, of course, also active in all 6 technical work packages of our flagship project, the Geological Service for Europe project, delivering a unified platform providing seamless access to geoscience data across Europe. The 4 Ukrainian partners in that project are listed here. And we highly value their participation, contributing to such outputs as harmonized onshore and offshore critical raw materials maps, groundwater monitoring database, a catalogue of aquifers for drought, parameters for offshore wind farm siting, an inventory of geological maps and models, and the International Centre of Excellence for Sustainable Resource Management for Europe, which will be launched next week. And of course, Ukraine has led the way in implementation of UNFC, which in Europe is now supported by an expert community that is centred in the geological surveys. In all of these, we appreciate the valuable contributions, expertise and commitment of our Ukrainian colleagues, including in their input into a key deliverable of the Geological Service for Europe project in March of this year, which is our new Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, which outlines our ambitions for foreseen future geoscientific research and innovation to support Europe's strategic ambitions. Regarding what lies ahead for potential future collaboration, in 2026 we expect to see a new European partnership on raw materials, which many member states have committed to co-funding, and which EuroGeoSurveys will most likely join as part of the consortium managing the partnership. This will serve as a new funding mechanism for the next phase of European raw materials research to boost the competitiveness of the European minerals industry and that of its strategic partners, including Ukraine. To finish, I want to recognise our mutual commitment and active collaborations in geoscience in multiple forums, through membership of our organisation, participation in our expert groups, and joint work on projects, most notably the Geological Service for Europe project. We greatly value your engagement with the broader European geoscientific community through EuroGeoSurveys, and I personally have great respect for your resilience, your courage, and your commitment, including to our shared scientific values. EuroGeoSurveys stands with you, and I wish you every success for the conference today. Thank you.
Дякуємо, пані Холліс.
Thank you, Madam Hollis. Well, maybe we have questions in the audience, so please, if there are some. Навіть запитань немає. Дякую. The next meeting is the European Presidents of European Geologists, EFG, David Hominy, in recording.
Colleagues and honored guests, I would like to extend my thanks to the President of the Ukrainian Association of Geologists for the kind invitation. It is an honor to join you today at the 7th Conference of Geologists of Ukraine. On behalf of the European Federation of Geologists, I bring warm greetings and express our solidarity with the Ukrainian geological community. Your commitment to advancing geosciences, even during adversity, it is an example of the resilience and dedication that define our profession. Ukraine's rich geological heritage and the expertise of its professionals are invaluable assets to Europe. In these difficult times, Ukraine shows strength, courage, and a clear will to build a better future. Your work as geologists supports that goal, helping to protect people and the environment, and to plan for country's future. This is something that in Europe we see and we admire. In these times of global transformation, the role of geologists has never been more critical. As we confront challenges as sustainable resource management, energy transition, and natural disaster prevention, our expertise is indispensable. The European Union adoption of the Critical Raw Material Act and the Net Zero Industry Act underscore this reality, setting ambitious targets for raw material sourcing and emphasizing the need of a skilled and mobile geological workforce. At EFG, we are committed to supporting this mission through initiatives like the European Geologist title and the EFG Academy, We aim to enhance professional competencies and facilitate international mobility and collaboration within the geological workforce. The Ukrainian Association of Geologists, as a member of EFG, is an integral part of this partnership, advocating for the essential role of geoscience in shaping a sustainable future. The European Federation of Geologists is ready to stand with you. We believe in the power of geoscience to build a more resilient and sustainable future for Ukraine and Europe. This is how we can all grow stronger, both as scientists, professionals, and citizens. Thank you for your dedication. Let me close by wishing you a successful and inspiring conference. May this day be full of new ideas, useful discussions, and strong connection between colleagues. Thank you and good day.
We thank the President of the European Federation of Geologists, and let me say that our union is also a member of this association, and we are in active cooperation with our European counterpart. Next to speak is by the Chief of the State Service of Geology and Subsoil of Ukraine, the trends and the areas of their operations. So it's going to be spoken by Oleh. Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm very happy to see everyone today, to be introduced to the ones that I didn't know before. It's a great pleasure for me to be at such an event, first of all, because I have been a participant of this kind of meeting in the Union of Geologists of Ukraine more than 10 years ago, and at that time I was just a geologist. However, it's a great pleasure for me right now to represent the Geological Service of Ukraine as the head of this organization. I can tell you that this is so highly pleasant for me. I thank Mr. Pavlo for the invitation he extended to me so kindly, because the questions raised by him are so relevant nowadays. It's a historic moment, I suppose, not only for our country as such. Let me remark on the things taking place at such a difficult time during the conditions of the armed aggression. I would like to thank the armed forces of Ukraine for the opportunity delivered to us today to speak. And I think that victory belongs to us, and notably in economic and military areas. Now, speaking about my presentation, it's not even a presentation. I would like to make a few emphases and share with you about the tasks of our State Service of Geology and its service that deals with environmental protection. We are faced with numerous challenges. However, it seems to me that nowadays we are managing very successfully. The conference in Krakow testified to that, which I recently visited, and there they remarked on a very high level of readiness of Ukraine to implement the Ukrainian legislation and approximate that to the European one in terms of critical raw materials. I believe, and it's not only that I believe that but in the final count we will be members of the final supply chains. This is number one task for Ukraine, to hit this task. Moreover, we have all it takes to ensure that. Basically, what does it take to do it in the nearest 2 to 3 years in Ukraine? We have some tasks, and one of the core tasks, let me just highlight the 3 key ones, and dwell on 2 of them. First, it's the implement of the plan of Ukraine, the so-called facility plan. I'm sure you have heard about it, you know about it. It's the funding accorded by the European Union, and in part it concerns critical raw materials. And Section 12, it's the management or stewardship of critical minerals and raw materials. Later on, I will dwell more on these tasks, especially for the State Service of Geology. which is implementing these tasks rather successfully. Another is the key memorandum about the strategic partnership with the EU, which was signed back in 2021. It was recently updated. And in Krakow, we spoke about the issues to implement the points included in this memorandum. And in particular, the task for this year is to approve and implement the roadmap for the years 25 and 26. So let me put it straightforwardly. It's already accorded by Ukraine and the European Union, well guided, and it is to be implemented and verified. Another important law of Ukraine, which it seems to me is significant for Ukraine, it's the first step in the area of critical minerals. It's one of the draft laws. It's the program which is concerns the baseline raw materials approved in December 24, and in January it was signed into effect by the President of Ukraine. Regarding the plan of Ukraine, the facility plan, I mean, let me put it up front. It contains 6 core points, 2 of which we have already delivered on. First, it's the approval of the law, which I have mentioned. This was the main obligation and commitment undertaken by Ukraine, publishing the report concerning the strategic deposits of and reserves of critical minerals in Ukraine. I suppose you all understand what that covers. We are verifying all of this inventory according to the Ukrainian law, and we are making a transition of this inventory, translating this into the language of understandable language. Crisco, for example, something which will be clearer to European and world companies which will come to invest in Ukraine, because without this classification, without this transition, without doing this stock, it will be impossible for us to move on. Therefore, we have committed to doing it, and at the moment this work is being finalized, and in line with the deadlines, all the verification and the publication of this report will be held. Another important point is the publication of investment portfolio projects in critical minerals area. So we are speaking about the different deposits, something which is promoted by the range of electronic auctions for different kinds of solid minerals. This is a new thing for us. It's a novelty. And we have some challenges, small ones, but anyway, I suppose that we will overcome them this year, but we have undertaken a step towards doing it. We have identified the lists of critical minerals and raw materials. At this point, they haven't been approved yet, but they have been submitted for their further consideration. So I think that the majority of you know about that. This was in publicly available. There were discussions concerning these lists announced, but given the condition of our legislative framework, we based our work on the list of critical raw materials primarily, not exceptionally, being guided by the European Union and such lists of the United States. But in line with our legislation, we have our own lists, which, as of now, have been submitted for approval. There are 28 of these critical and strategic. Ones are 11. And in line with these lists, we have prepared a portfolio of different areas of subsoil which undergo auctions and tenders. Once again, this hasn't been approved yet. I guess it's going to be discussed further, and regional administration and local village councils will still have to take a look into those documents. There's certain kind of opposition as to going for auctions. So let me remark that these lists don't mean that tomorrow we will go down to do different kinds of works. After approval, certain procedures will have to be undertaken, auctions will be announced, and in line with the Ukrainian legislation, all of the mechanisms will have to be elaborated. In particular, when we speak about environmental concerns, protecting the environment, so without the necessary environmental assessments, no other legal work will be promoted in this area. With reference to subsoil areas, we have 60 such areas submitted for auctions and 26 other ones. They may vary, let me put it up front, in line with the approved draft law mentioned and according to the approved methodology. Now we have a certain issue at stake to develop the special methodology of how to assign different critical minerals, and European partners working together with us in the Ministry of Economy, and together with this ministry we're developing this methodology, and there are respective strategies in the area of critical minerals and raw materials being developed. As soon as this methodology is approved, these lists will definitely be updated and reapproved. And this is provided for by the conditions in terms of the draft law. Concerning updating the electronic account of subsoil users, it's our obligation. We have fulfilled that, implemented that, and in the month of April, I guess the majority of you, following the information resource of our service, you see that we started to implement that, so there's a special permission to undertake the exploitation of these materials. And also, we also have a special document concerning reporting. The majority of the companies that will be moving along the European Union, they will have to report, and it means that we have done the majority of our work. And now the Ministry of Environment are considering this work, and they will act accordingly with the necessary deadlines adhered to. So mainly what concerns the years 2025 and 2026 is the development of low carbon dioxide plans in order to develop different plans. We are partially involved in that. This is more to do with the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Environmental Protection, but we are also indirectly involved in this process. The key point for us here is digitalization, scanning, geological reports meant for investors to provide free access about this information, about the different assets that have been privatized. So it means that together with our European partners, we want to prepare these these auctions in a qualitative way in line with the European standards for the world to see all of our geological information, which is supposed to be clear and understandable to both everyone in Ukraine and abroad. So we want it to be digitalized, do some kind of our homework in part. If we have different data concerning deposits of critical minerals, geological models will have to be built in order to understand how this critical raw material is spread around the face of Ukraine. And another complicated issue, I suppose, that it concerns a separate discussion. It's the review of our deposits. Once again, GRISCO, PMS, and any other systems that will have to be aligned together with all of the subsoil users. We will have to transit to these new classification systems of reserves, mineral reserves. Another point to make on behalf of the European Union, they are extending to us full support, and in 2024, they remarked on the successful project of the single portal exercised by our service. And for this year, we have the extension of this agreement. Now it's at the final stage. We have an amount of about 2 million euros allocated in order to continue working in digitalization, e-accounts, for example. And we are hoping that in the nearest future, these agreements will be signed, and the level of digitalization in our service will be 100% in compliance with the requirements, which is so valuable for both international investors and Ukrainian users. And another thing, now everyone is talking about the agreement with Americans. I'm not going to dwell on this agreement because a lot of you are reading the news. You have seen those lists of critical minerals and non-critical materials, strategic ones. It's not a secret. Accordingly, a lot of work is awaiting us as a follow-up to this agreement, because it's just a small chunk of this deal, and I think that at the next stage, the State Service of Geology will also be actively involved in all of these processes. Of course, we are already involved. And accordingly, the main aspect, hopefully, I think in the nearest future, something that is within the scope of our attention is the so-called refill of classified information concerning critical raw materials, strategic ones. I think it's going to take place in the nearest future. It's difficult to set any deadlines, but it's impossible to do without it, to open up to investors and demonstrate everything for your investments. If you're inviting someone to participate, it's impossible to keep your documents hidden. So at this point, I think I will bring my presentation to a close. I'm very happy to have been extended this invitation to participate concerning this deal. I'm sure that we will have repeated meetings to discuss and comment more broadly on the clauses of this deal, because it's really significant, definitive for Ukraine, and the only one for Ukraine in many ways. It's a window of opportunity to develop our geological industry. And in particular, let me remark that we are also working very actively in MSB program. Since 2020, geological exploration hasn't been funded, as was remarked previously, but this program envisages funding for the geological service, for example, mapping, for the augmentation of different mineral resources, drilling wells in line with the standards required by Europe and the world. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Mr. Oleh, now we have some time left before the next presentation. Maybe you have some questions to the previous speaker. You're welcome to raise them at this point, because we need to stick to our agenda. So are there any questions to the previous speaker? No questions? All right, thank you. Next to speak is Stella Shekhunova, Director of the Institute of Geological Sciences at the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. She is an academician of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, Professor, Doctor of Geological Sciences, and she'll be speaking about the Department of Earth Sciences of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, current developments and challenges. So the floor goes to you, Ms. Stella. Thank you. Thank you, dear speaker. Dear participants of this congregation, for having this opportunity to talk to each other, communicate, and I'm honored to greet you on behalf of our scientists, of our Department of Geological Sciences at the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. Today, due to the work of the Union of Geologists of Ukraine, we have a so-called kind of online unification of Ukrainian geological and European scientific communities. And again, I would like to sincerely thank the organizers of this conference for this opportunity. We are fully aware of the fact that our country probably now is going through one of the hardest periods in its history, especially over the last 30 years of its independence, standing up for its independence, standing up for its statehood. Yet be reminded that over 100 years ago, when the formation of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine took place, the biological service was being shaped at that time. The situation was no better. Yet these processes did take place regardless of any difficulties in political and military situation in Ukraine back in the day. In 1918, thanks to the activities of scientists, academics, natural scientists, Vernadsky, Dudkovsky. Sorry for the disruption. So once again, due to the activities undertaken by natural scientists, Dudkovsky, Vernadsky, documents were established a draft law to establish the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences. And on the basis of that, Pavlo Skoropadsky, the chieftain of Ukraine at that time, signed it into law, the establishment of the Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. However, the same year, 1918, a decision was taken about the establishment of the Ukrainian Geological Committee. And in August 1918, its first director in Ukraine of this Ukrainian Geological Committee was appointed professor of St. Vladimir University, Volodymyr Luchitsky. And this mutual work and connections between the heads, the chiefs of the Academy and Geological Service, they were preserved. They were so important. They persisted in their importance during all of the years and decades of the geological science development in Ukraine, which I think is also worth doing in our day. In 1925, the first two academic institutions were established. First, it was Poltava Observatory and an institute, or Ukrainian Scientific Research Geological Institute, which since 1940 is titled the Institute of Geological Sciences under the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. This institute established a great number of other academic, scientific, geological institutions in Ukraine, which now are part of our section of the science of geosciences. I mean, Lviv Institute of Subsoil Geophysics, Geochemistry, Geominerals, and ores formation. Now, we have 14 scientific institutions under our umbrella, and in different years this section was headed by Starostenko, Shestopalov, Shekhunova, and now this department is headed by Mr. Ponomarenko. Now I would like to outline very briefly some of the areas of research being carried out in our institutions, and to focus not only on the challenges of strategic and critical minerals and raw resources, which we take so close to our heart since 2007 in particular. We have been working on a number of different contest programs, developing different scientific baselines for these projects, identifying which mineral resources are critical, strategic, how to expand the base of critical minerals in Ukraine. I would also like to introduce, as Julie Hollis says, some science in my report. Therefore, let me also mention some conceptual issues that we are working on in our scientific community. First, the Institute of Geological Sciences. Different schools initiated by Dudkovsky and Bondarchuk are being developed on general regional geology. We have also a large area dedicated to the geology of minerals, the geology of oil and gas. But something else that makes our institution unique is that we have the greatest number of employees of paleontology, in particular employed in our department. And our institution is also a basic institution for paleontological society in Ukraine, and due to this potential, updated schemes have been developed and approved. Special codes of Ukraine have been established, which are a baseline for doing exploration work in Ukraine and other targeted and purposeful studies and surveys. Another point I'd like to dwell on is the issue of in-depth deization of Earth. This issue was developed by Shestopalov and Lukin in our institution, and on the face of it, it looks pretty academic because it connects the global development of our planet with the rest of the processes. However, it also directly has a bearing on the formation of minerals deposits and solving various geological and mineralogical challenges. For example, involving the mechanism of in-depth degassation, we are able to identify the role of how evolution affected carbohydrate formation on the bed of the Black Sea and volcanic activities and the formation of gas and hydration formation. So as a result of all that, now we have some information about the deposits and prognostication about gasogenerates, deposits that require further exploration. This work was done with the help of Shekhunova, Skoberev, Starastenko, and with this concept, what goes along is the first detailed development by Oleksandr Klimchuk, the theory called by our international colleagues paleo-genesis. So this process plays an important role in the processes of shaping zones and areas of anomalies and various kinds of deposits. The war has introduced certain corrections and disruptions in our exploration and survey scientific work that we deal with in particular. We have been given a grant by the Fund of Scientific Research of Ukraine for the institutes allocated for the years 2023 and 2024. We carried out a project to assess environmental condition to preserve the historical legacy reserve of Kyiv-Pechersk Lavra under the conditions of martial law. So when we implement this work, we apply different methods of non-ruinous monitoring based on contemporary structural health monitoring, utilizing the set of pre-manufactured highly vibrological equipment. And we are also trying to assess the impact of hostilities on different legacy objects, different intersections. I mean, in the review of paleobotany, we have an article published about the legacy of Ukraine, how this is disappearing after the full-scale invasion of Russia. So we are exploring there what happened to the geological environment of Ukraine after the Kakhovka Dam was destroyed. We also have a lot of historical experience concerning oil, gas, contamination, remediation of these types of contamination. And this expertise will definitely be very much in demand when our country is reconstructed in post-war time. Now Geophysics Institute, named after Subotin, it's a prominent university when we speak about studying the mantle of the Earth. This is the single institution in Ukraine which deals with monitoring of seismicity in the whole territory of Ukraine. Over the last 20 years, the Institute, under the guidance of Mr. Starastenko, unique works have been undertaken. These works were carried out by the employees of the Institute of Geophysics, the Association of Ukrgazvydobuvannya, in collaboration with the European and US scientists. Then we did lots of Euro bridges. You can see some of these pictures depicted on the left-hand side of the slide. And as a result of implementing this work, unique complex of geological information has been accumulated, which allows us to do different geodynamic schemes and is used in order to prognosticate deposits of critical and strategic mineral deposits in Ukraine. The next slide is to illustrate the monitoring observation in the territory of Ukraine, which is carried out by this institute.
They designed a software for seismic protection and protection of critical infrastructure against earthquakes. Plus, we are now researching the magnetic field of Earth, thanks to the Center of Collective Use, with the most state-of-the-art magnetometric equipment. The Institute of Geophysics, Paleomagnetic Studies, is using for paleogeographical reconstruction according to the European craton to calibrate the international chronostrata scale. So the Institute of Geology, named after Semenenko, we are researching the geochemistry of the formation of ores, petrological studies, geology, metal generation, and prognostics of the mineral deposits, prognostication. But what the Institute is mostly famous for from times immemorial is development of isotope-based geochronology. So right now, the Institute has the mass spectrometry center of soil, solid phase, gas, isotope, and microelement analysis. Thanks to the designed methodologies, we have identified a huge blocks of Ukrainian crystalline shield, big blocks of croton, and we've established the time age of greenstone belts, 3 generations, and we've proven the relations between the Ukrainian magnetic shield and Kursk magnet anomaly. Also, the use of this equipment has established that mineralization of lead and lithium pegmatites in Stonovsky and Loginsky is similar to niobium tantal mineralization, which is important to develop the metal generation model of this interesting asset, and secondly, to design and develop the technology of its exploration. The Institute also is developing, is the only one agency that does that in Ukraine, which is researching the meteorite substances. And this is the area where this year the Institute has received the award, Pavlo Lazarenko Award, for a unique scientific thesis, a unique meteorite named Krinka. So now the Institute of Geography. The Institute of Geography of the National Academy of Sciences has now scientific schools of natural sciences and spatial planning, which is a trendy industry, strategic and zoning spaces. We are quite on par with the world research in this, but one of the most important, I'd say, one of the most important works that the Institute of Geography has conducted is Encyclopedia of a Geographic Encyclopedia of Ukraine, a 3-volume publication that we've been using for several decades now. In 2007, we have published the only one national map atlas of Ukraine. It was created thanks to the academician Rudenko, because the Institute of Geography that he was leading was a responsible agency for scientific support of preparing, drafting, and publishing of this atlas. In 2023-2024, the Institute of Geography, as part of the project of National Fund of Ukrainian Research, together with experts of Ukrainian Hydrometeorology Institute as well as Botany Institute, we have designed a geoinformation system of assessment and modeling of zoning, zonal consequences of Russian aggression, and this document has been used actively. The Institute of Geology and flammable flammable minerals. It's studying the potential deposits of oil, gas, methane, of coal. But I cannot be remiss of mentioning of a very famous scientific school that was formed in this institute, which is the research and development of gas deposits thermobarochemistry school, which has been recognized by international community, and it absolutely has to be mentioned. Such great professors as Kalužny, Oleh Petruchenko, Professor Kovalevich. Now this particular part of the studies is continued by Mr. Naumko, and it's our great asset, and we should be using it in our subsequent works and studies of new geological assets. Other than that, the Institute of Geology and Chemistry of Fossil Fuels, we have done the reconstruction of prospects of oil and gas deposits and carbon potential of this territory. In the Scientific Center of Airspace Studies of Earth of the Institute of Geological Sciences, the challenges of today has called the drafted prototype of the mapping of contaminated territories by using UAVs. So there are software and hardware applications of remote detection of explosive items using sensors of different physical origin. So these works are planned under the leadership of Popkov. And a few words about the problems of marine geology, marine ecology, and marine deposits. In this institution, to answer the challenges of the time, to facilitate the needs of southern regions of Ukraine, we have designed a complex technology of research of groundwaters in the coastal area of South Black Sea to spread the potential prospects of their development. These works have been done under the leadership of Yemelyanov. And now, talking about challenges that all of our institutions are facing, they are all, in one way or another, related to Russian aggression that has been going on for 3 years now. So we have many of our employees, our scientists, were volunteers or were conscripted to the army. Part of our employees are abroad, but such factors are also having influence as the decrease in budget funding, and we are now limited in the way we can support our young professionals. And also, to some extent, our work has been impacted by geological industry being somewhat stagnant because we don't have access to new materials. Plus, there is instability of the development sector, which is also hampering our development. But the Institute is continuing to cooperate in order to somehow balance out, to compensate for underfunding. We participate in international projects. We cooperate with scientific institutions in Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Germany, France, Sweden, Croatia, Slovak Republic, Spain, Bulgaria, Romania, the US. As an example, the Institute of Geophysics, as part of the partnership agreement with American institutions, is now modernizing and reconstructing the national seismic network of Ukraine. Our institute, the Institute of Geochemistry, Mineralogy, and ORS, together with the Union of Geologists in Ukraine, we're participating of G7 project that was mentioned today by the General Secretary of EuroGeoSurveys, Madam Julie Hollis. And we are also facing the problem of somewhat diminished numbers of young professionals. So now the Department of Sciences about Earth is 1,200, of them 210 candidates, PhDs and MP and PhDs, but the percentage of the young scientists is not higher than 10%. So we're trying to actively cooperate with the young generation. We have the Council of Young Scientists in our department. We're supporting them everywhere we can. The Academy is conducting competitions for grants for young scientists. As an example, this year, the Institute of Geology and Geological Sciences, Vitaly Dernov, had become the best young scientist of the Academy in 2024. In nomination of paleontology, and he says it's a profession that is dying out, and so the Academy has valued his contribution. So, on top of that, our unit is publishing scientific journals, Geophysical, Geographical, Geochemical. They are all indexed by Scopus database, as well as Web of Science. There are also a number of scientific works that are professional publications of Ukraine. They're all published using fair science. We don't take payment for that. And access to publications is free, open access. So to coordinate our work and to cooperate with producers, with the vendors, we have committees and councils working, in particular the National Strategic Cartography Committee, Paleontology, Union of Mineralogy. There are also committees to cooperate with UNESCO. This is the Committee of Geological Correlation. And also we have scientific councils quite active. So, despite the current challenges, we keep cooperating with state authorities, the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources, with the State Geological Service, Ministry of Education. So basically you can see all the ministries that we have connections to. So to sum up, I want to say that I am confident that Ukrainian practitioners, geologists and scientists, through their work, will facilitate and strengthen our mineral deposits and industry. We will restore systemic geological studies and research the way it was back in the day, and we will make a worthy contribution to restoring our economy, and we hope our armed forces will be victorious. And we want to thank them for being able to have this meeting. Thank you so much. So, dear colleagues, we have some time for questions, if there are. Do you have any questions to Stella? If not, then we continue, and the next presentation will be Naftogaz Ukraine, Maksym Vityk, Director of Geological Development and Ukrgazvydobuvannya, as part of the Naftogaz Ukraine. Thank you so much. It's I thank you for mentioning the Mr. Kaluzny, head of my thesis. because I remember I started my career back in the day from that particular department, headed by Volodymyr. And so the science that this department was developing and pursuing is the leading agency. I want to pass some greetings from a friendly, great team of geologists of Naftogaz, and in particular Ukrgazvydobuvannya company. I would want to congratulate the entire meeting. It's hard to overestimate the importance of this meeting, because right now the synergy is very important in how we cooperate, the partnership between all the geologists, and I see that this meeting as a powerful step in that direction. So the name of my presentation will be about Naftogaz Ukraine, but I will be talking about my particular part of business in the company, which is the exploration and development as part of Ukrgazvydobuvannya. So our activity in the east of Ukraine is mostly two mining operations, Poltavsky, Lvivsky, in the west. Unfortunately, because of the security situation on the Black Sea, we have suspended the works, the field works in Black Sea. But let me tell you about the progress we've made so far during the war and before the war in the regions of Black Sea, and about some of our plans. We also have powerful geological teams working in the Institute, Gas Institute, who are continuing to work in Kharkiv. And part of the geologists are now in Ivano-Frankivsk. Also, Ukrburgas, Ukrservice, Ukrprom Geophysics. As for our technical potential, as we've mentioned today, the general competition in the field, in the global field now, is huge. So we are now having 42 drilling operations, 38 KRS drills, which makes our drilling fleet is the biggest on land fleet in Europe. We're ready to compete. We're actively working in Ukraine, and I think we will not only work in Ukraine but also abroad. Now, some of the facts and our achievements of the 2024. I'm not saying about mining now because of the security situation and limitations. We decided to not talk about specific numbers, but I will just tell you how we change and how the exploration changes. So 2024, a record-breaking progress, 300,000 meters, 82 wells were started, which is also a record-breaking indicator. In 2025, this year, we're planning to have 100 wells per year, which is a significant result. 3D and 2D seismic. I talk about field work and processing, about 3,000 square meters. Again, it's only field work and processing. In 2024, we drilled the deepest well in the history of Ukrgazvydobuvannya, almost 7 kilometers. We had bought on an auction a strategic, important Mazharivska deposit, and we start the seismic studies soon. At the end of 2025, the drilling. We also started a new deposit in Ilkivska. Now, as I promised, the information on production. So on this slide, you can see some information starting from 1998 until now. The number of wells the company has drilled, which is operational drilling and exploration drilling. And we have information broken down by each year. And another trend in the production out of these wells. These are all newly started wells. And as every year, we see that the years 2024-25 will, I hope, will be record-breaking, despite the war. The record-breaking years in gas production. So that's part of my job specifically. We also have increased the number of wells drilled. In 2025, we will have 100 plus wells per year. So if we take the exploration or operational drilling, we have increased the number of operational wells, almost doubled, so the production has doubled as well. As for research and exploration drilling, we start about 20-30 wells per year, but we had increased the number of exploration wells four times compared to pre-war. So if we consider all these complications that we are working with, so drilling, doing seismic work, 35 kilometers from the front line, it's, I think, quite a significant result. So how do we achieve these results? Well, first of all, of course, teamwork. We have reformed a lot of things in our operations. So, for instance, now we do a generation of points of drilling. We have built a strong team, a professional team, and the quality of our drill points have increased. And you can see it in the drilling results, actually. And another super important factor that is hard to overestimate is the high-quality seismic 3D. So we're basically now have invested quite a lot into technological improvement of seismic results. And in many cases, we see gas on the seismic, the so-called DHI. We do QI work, and that led to opening a number of new deposits. Our plans for the future to reach 3,000 square kilometers of field seismic work and 3D seismic per year. And I hope that next year we will get this result. Another super important thing is 3D modeling, which is looking for sweet spots and the new places, which is very important. The team, part of the team is in Kharkiv, part in Ivano-Frankivsk. We're generating models. We have generated 30 plus models that are actively being used for drilling in particular. Black Sea, as I promised to tell you about the Black Sea. So we had a plan to cover the entire shelf of Odessa, plus the deep water through high-quality 3D seismic. We had this plan before the war, We reached the sea, we shot 5,000 square kilometers of 3D seismic, and then the war started. And the project on deep waters was suspended. I'll tell you more. When we did seismic on shallow waters, the Russians, well, did everything they could to stop it. But in the end, we still did what we planned to do. We are now at the final stage of this seismic. We have 40 prospective assets, so we're ready to go to sea and drill. The one thing that prevents us from that now is the security situation. And the head of our maritime project, Leonid Melnik, if you don't know, we want to thank Leonid for this work that he did before the war to organize the seismic studies, because that's the best quality of seismic data on Black Sea, at least in Ukraine. We're confident. And the work that had been done during the war to properly interpret the data. A couple words about the new energies. Новые энергии, it's new types of energy is our future. We believe in that strongly. In our team, we started several new things. I want to stop on two, and they have to do with geology. Thermal energy, in particular in Transcarpathia, we have several projects that we're doing there with our team, as well as cooperation with European companies, and also a project on the so-called geological hydrogen, which is often called golden hydrogen. So it's not blue hydrogen, it's not brown hydrogen. Why golden? Because as a methane gas, it is in the pockets. It's captured in the pocket, and the way we seek for gas, we also seek the hydrogen. So it's a global trend now. But based on what we're doing now, I can confidently say that we're not lagging behind, and in many ways we are ahead of the game. And we're now doing a lot of field work, in particular in the West. We're learning mapping big areas of anomalies, thinking that it will help us in the future to find new hydrogen deposits. So this work has been going on in close cooperation with the Lviv University and our international partners. And something about our future, the academia and cooperation. About 14 students per year go through internship in Ukrgazvydobuvannya in our company. We have very close cooperation with a number of academia that are important for us in terms of the young generation, our future, which is Dnipro Polytechnic, Kharkiv University of Karazin, Poltava Polytechnica, and of course the Shevchenko University and Lviv University, where I particularly was a student, and it's my alma mater. So mentoring, scholarships, trainings, excellence for students and teachers. We're now creating branded spaces in our universities. We did this in Lviv University. We started several projects in other universities, so we're doing that actively, and that is our future. So that's my last slide for this presentation. I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm confident that this particular event, the 7th meeting of geologists, is going to be an important step to build our energy independent and victorious. Thank you and greetings.
Perhaps there are some questions to Mr. Maksym. You're welcome, if you have any. Be brave, raise your hands. If not, let's move on. Next speech, Environmental Problems of Ukraine and Ways to Solve Them, is to be spoken about by Oleksandr Bondar, Rector of the State Ecological Academy of Postgraduate Education and Management of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine, Doctor of Biological Sciences, Professor, corresponding member of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. So, dear colleagues, first of all, let me join you in the chorus of the previous statements and thus thank our armed forces of Ukraine for this opportunity to get together and discuss such a number of important points. Let's thank our GIs and officers on the front line in the trenches who are defending Ukraine. It's such a high mission which they are delivering right now. Secondly, thank you very much, Mr. Pavlo, for the extended invitation. I remember back in 2012, 2013, working with fracking and shale gas, Chevron company. All of this project, unfortunately, now rests in peace for a variety of reasons. There were different anti-Ukrainian ideas hovering in the air that stopped us from fulfilling this project. I wouldn't like us to consider geological problems separately for environmental ones. Please be reminded about 2014, and I'm remembering it for a reason. There was a democratic initiative, an organization founded together with an American structure, and for a number of years they ran monitoring of environmental nature, social opinion was studied, and they identified that over the last years, before 2014, when the Revolution of Dignity took place, the protest potential and capacity of the population in Ukraine, especially in the regions like the Donbass, Lugansk and Donetsk regions, grew significantly. There was a great deal of dissatisfaction concerning the environmental situation in the area. It would grow 2 to 3 times a year in and out, and before 2040, it reached about 120 protests a year. At that time, they were bragging about the fact that those pickets were taking place without bloodshed, but those were environmental problems that were utilized, and perhaps on purpose, to try to sever the Donbass from Ukraine. Basically, this is how it worked out. However, environmental issues and the legacy in this regard still remains with us. After we gained independence. In 1991, no doubt, I'm not going to dig deep into history, but in 1991, we already were suffering from Chernobyl disaster, 5.7 million square kilometers, 500,000 population were moved, and lack of economic activity, efficient economic activity, the soil degradation scale that we had at the time and have right now, they were about 130% of our land stock. So per every square kilometer, there would be several such areas, which means every year we were losing 500 small rivers on an annual basis due to our construction, sedimentation, agricultural activities in the coastal and littoral areas. Also, military facilities. Remember our army in 2003, Tuzla, when Russia initiated a conflict in the Kerch Straits. 850 1,000 troops. This was a high pinnacle of this conflict when Putin came to power in 2000, and this was back in 2003. It was under Putin, but he wouldn't dare do any abrupt actions because we had a strong army. All of those were still environmental issues. Tuzla, then environmental issues to do with Kutyslav quarry on the border with Belarus. Kutyslav quarry and the Shatsk lakes, our unique lakes, were in question in terms of their existence. Then Romania with its canal. Then the points to do with a huge area of contamination. Environmental protests took place and erupted in Zhytomyr region when geologists must remember titanium production started. So people, the population, were highly dissatisfied. Besides, military facilities. You know, a natural reserve area in Ukraine prior to the war was 7% of the entire territory of Ukraine. This is our unique emerald, precious territories. But the facilities of military nature, I mean, industrial enterprises, military towns, training ranges, it's about 15% of the Ukraine's territory, so it's twice as much. This is bad land, potentially contaminated with gas, etc., and oil, petrochemicals. So we have a whole lot of accumulated issues, and within the system of environmental security and safety, geological industry is not at the end. So today's speakers, when they were making statements about kilometers and meters of progress to be drilled and bored, they failed to remember one thing from my perspective, and undeservedly. Because even Mr. President, in his peace formula, out of the 10 points contained in it, point 8 is about ecocide, preventing ecocide and opposing that. And numbers 1 and 2 are its energy security, agrarian security. So he connected all of these things very logically, but now we are severing it all, separating. For 15 years, I was a member of an expert geological group assessing environmental safety for different geological facilities, and I'm very savvy about that. And I can tell you that the greatest contamination resultant from geological activity is even hard to imagine. Recently, we went to go to Zhytomyr region to see different regions, different kinds of quarries. It's a disastrous situation. There's no law or order maintained there. Besides, it's even a greater danger looming, which geological industry still preserves, contributed by geology, and it still persists as a bomb. This is the uranium heritage of uranium mines. And I suppose they're going to be referred to the critical infrastructure, and it's interesting to hear the Americans' perspective on that. So these are the 3 mines. I'm taking just 3 mines in Zholty Vody town, Dnipro, near Dnipro, chemical plant, which contains 68 million tons of dangerous radioactive products. Today, we had a representative of the National Academy of Sciences. In response to that, I would like to say that in 2023, after the Kakhovka Dam was destroyed, together with the Institute of Geochemistry, with Mr. Zabulonov, now he's an academician, we raised a UAV to assess the contamination and pollution situation. It was a radiometer installed on it. It was very difficult to do because on the opposite side there was the content line, and this drone or LAN 10 from the Russian side was also up in the air to see what we were up to. So it turned out that the radiation at the bottom of the Kakhovka reservoir, it was not possible to get everywhere, but wherever we had this opportunity of access, some 2 or 3 square kilometers, the radiation level was higher. Not substantially higher, but still some 5 to 6 times higher than at the ports. And I thought, where does it come from? What is the origin of this radiation, of this fallout? I suppose that this is the Chernobyl trace, cesium, strontium, and we were vastly surprised when we went for geochemistry and it was identified that it was thorium and radium. These are long-lived elements. They stay for a long time without depletion. So where did they come from? They came from, undeniably, from Zhytomyr, from Zhovty Vody, because this production facility is horrendous. Its state is appalling. And this is a breakthrough industry, nuclear industry. It was a defense industry. So due to these technologies, which were absolutely outdated, obsolete, and it's not even either yesterday compared to nowadays. It's even the 1940s and 50s. So this was the aftermath of that type of activities. And when they cast their different types of waste in this reservoir, 10 million tons were dropped in there. And it's 500 meters from the Dnipro River, and on the other side, Konoplanka River goes around it. And it just drains all of this, and it gets directly into the Dnipro River. And the lifespan in Kamensky town is 30% shorter than over the full border of Ukraine, because some of the territories lie in the areas where all of this slag heaps and this waste material is stored. So when talking about geological industry nowadays, when we are discussing the New Deal with the US, I think that we mustn't forget the geological and environmental component invested in that. Now, Mr. Oleg was speaking about conducting auctions. But auctions also have this environmental component, and these parameters must also be devised, and environmentalists must also participate in their development. Which parameters should be included in there, because any territory should be finalized in a logical way. So if this is the uranium fallout area, so there it should contain a green glade, there is such an ocean, or as it is abroad, by the way. Different territory cultivations are done. So rehabilitation, recultivation, they should go hand in hand, and this also must be included into the overall price. I'm very much surprised. All of us are insiders of this industry. You know, geology, according to all of the forecasts prepared recently, the latest assessments prepared for the signing of the deal, it's $14 trillion. $14 trillion. So we're sitting on a sack of gold. So why are we so poor? What is the snag? It's a huge surprise. Because maybe another issue is sleeping or dormant licenses, the so-called dormant licenses. For example, the license was issued, but nothing is done. So maybe we have to do the inventory of the owners of these license holders and make very specific decisions on them. You know that in 2018, Germany closed its last mine on extracting coal. And now in the West, they are posed with the question of post-mining, of mining towns. What is it all about? It's something that requires, this is the legacy that we have for the rest of our lives, because we have to pump out heavily mineralized water. It needs treating, something which geological industry, unfortunately, is not dealing with at all. 40 million cubic meters drain from Kryvyi Rih Basin. 80 million of heavily mineralized waters used to drain from the Donbas. Nowadays, all of these mines are destroyed. So all of these heavily mineralized waters are getting into the Seversky Donets River, so it can transform into a dirty puddle. So ignoring all of this, we can transform the whole of Ukraine into the contaminated and polluted area. So we need to maintain a balance. We need to strike this balance like it is in the Zelensky formula. Environmental component, ecocide, needs to be taken into account, because what Russia is doing is all down to an ecocide. Now the damages in the environmental area is up to 92 billion hryvnias. In the amount, these are unique natural reserve areas. It's all about waterlands. Just take a look at the Kakhovka area itself. As of now, the damages, direct damages incurred is up to $2 billion, but you mustn't forget about the notion of ecosystemic services. So we must stem from such notions, because we are looking up to America and Europe, the assessment of such ecosystemic services. If you assess what this territory used to provide us with before this thermal power plant was destroyed, it's about 3 times the whole product that Kherson region used to develop and deliver to us. We also have to face that. So the development of environmental standards, conducting environmental audits, and it's also a must, the matter of technologies. Now, right now we are working with the Institute of Biochemistry. We are now holding a biochemical audit at all of these uranium facilities to the east. The situation is very complicated. I'm not going to dig into it, but environmental measures need to be undertaken and different activities. This must be included in the wholesome, holistic program. And standards must be developed, and of course, preparing the personnel. You have just spoken about universities, cooperation with the Lviv and Kharkiv universities. However, there are some sophisticated points which are to do with subtle points of preparing would-be specialists. I'm talking about refresher training courses, not at the level of the university where the general notions are studied, but at the level of the institutions which are under the umbrella of the Ministry of Environmental Protection or mining institutions. So we need to prepare and equip very fine specialists who do not just are guided by general notions, but they have to be very savvy about very, very fine notions. So you can see a whole array of different notions which are included into this deal and minerals mining. So right now I think our task is to get our heads together and develop proposals which will comprehensively solve the various issues that we have in the industry. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. If there are any questions, please go ahead. Let me say the following. The draft resolution of our Congress is being prepared, so if you have any proposals to submit to that, I can see that Mr. Oleksandr has a lot of them. You're welcome to file them to us, and we will try to take them into account. Now we still have some time before the break. That's why we think we will carry on with our work. And let us listen to one more presentation, which is about the preparation of geologists to ensure the personnel needs of enterprises of the mineral and raw material complex of Ukraine, current state of affairs and challenges. To speak is Vyzhva Serhii, Director of the Institute of Geology at Taras Shevchenko National University, Kyiv, Professor, Doctor of Geological Sciences. Let me also add, because not all information about Mr. Serhii is included here recently, he was also appointed the corresponding member of the National Academy of Sciences, and let us all congratulate him on this attainment. Now, Mr. Serhii, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am grateful to the organizers, to the Union of Geologists, with whom we have been in tight collaboration for many years. The Union of Geologists consists of the graduates of Taras Shevchenko National University. just like the Academy of Sciences. So, colleagues, I will be speaking directly about my topic, but let me also enter the discussion with the previous speaker, Mr. Oleksandr, and say something to oppose him. Of course, he raises a whole area of different important points, but the development of deposits, it's mining, it's not geology, it's another area of science. And geologists are usually highly protective of science. What we do, we only source, we only explore, we only count, and then we pass it on for the mining industry. But let me start my intervention with the following. These tasks and assignments set for us concerning the deal with the United States, the strategic and critical minerals and raw materials, if they are developed, most likely they are going to be developed. It's a matter of time. Who's going to do that? Will Americans or Europeans come here and bring all of the management, all of the employees to deal with that? Most importantly, I suppose that preparing personnel will be incumbent on us. And my topic is the current state of affairs and problems of subsoil use. So, first of all, let me make a few statements before I move on to the numbers I have prepared. So what do universities and academia represent nowadays? I think they are the hubs of stability in Ukraine, because we make plans for mid-term and long-term prospects. We work, and as of now, we haven't lost touch with public institutions and real businesses. So how is this done? First and foremost, this is done via our alumni, graduates, the parents, and the sponsors of our students, because clearly if you have graduates and students, you can work with them. Secondly, it's our expert analysis and delivery of services of analytical kind and different kinds of expertise, examinations, because we have a lot of private institutions, public institutions turning out to us. Thirdly, it's our social function, because to all of the questions, I personally did 15 interviews for different agencies and news outlets in Portugal, France, Germany, etc. for New York Times. Mr. Mikhailov, professor, he has already done more than 20 different interviews for international news outlets, and we have to explain every time the same thing over and over again. You inevitably understand these things, and you are marveled at the questions that non-specialists ask you. For example, Maksym Vityk said that he's not going to articulate different things about the extraction, but the correspondents will immediately ask where we have the deposits, how much is being extracted, etc. Say it for the camera and very quickly. Thirdly, I suppose that our universities are a hub to align cooperation with our foreign partners. For example, National Shevchenko University has agreements with more than 700 overseas universities, grant programs, and the like. Now I would like to share about problems. So the question is, given the fact that we are a candidate country for the membership in the EU, we had to harmonize fully our educational space with that of the European system. In fact, two issues arose. First of all, we began to speak as if the same language with our counterparts, the same educational degrees, the same terms of studying, formal requirements, etc. Whilst on the other hand, it seems they say the development of geology at the level of Ukraine is the highest in comparison to other countries in the EU, but the officials never paid much attention to that, and they decided to harmonize our legislation, so they did it in 2015. There was the first resolution by the Cabinet of Ministers, according to which 21 occupations, 3 areas of knowledge, geology, geography, hydrometeorology, were merged into one speciality. This is geosciences. And respectively, this speciality includes not only geologists, but all of the meteorology, geology, soil studies, etc. They were all rolled into one. In 2014 amendments were introduced to this list, so we had 24 areas of knowledge, and now we only have 11. In Europe, there are 10 areas of knowledge. We also add another one, military area of knowledge. And now geological area of sciences. So the subject of studies, I'm in charge of the project group to develop different geosciences, and we put it this, that our subject of studies is the whole Earth, all of the processes unfolding on it and in it. And in all of the standards which we set out, there's not a single word mentioned about the fact that neither geology nor geophysics is mentioned. So when we take a look at the whole list of these occupations and specialties, which is in some way traditional for us, all of these professionals need to be prepared and equipped. All of these subtle points have to be accounted for. And this has to be contributed to a single curriculum, to a single speciality, so that it can be accredited with international institutions and diplomas can be issued based on this curriculum. So the question is, how can we account for all of this? So let us do it due to the multiplicity of tasks and speciality and personnel available. Next issue I would like to draw your attention to is the requirements that we have to the curriculum itself, to the professionals that we are preparing and training, etc. If we have a look, nowadays more than 36 academia are preparing different kinds of professionals in this regard, and only 9 of them are preparing geological specialists.
You see the main list. I will not name, you'll know them. And now some statistics for you. So you can see numbers here, and you can see by years what is the current state order, thanks to support of Geology Service and our impact through our graduates to the Parliament, to the Ministry of Economy. Our specialty of earth sciences is well protected and high priority. What does it mean? It means that we can order as many professionals as we can provide and sustain. So 4 columns. The left column is macro size, how much the state can put an order to. So you see 124, in the latest years there's a certain decrease because demographic situation is somewhat, of course, harder. Our students are moving, relocating, and parents have other priorities. So the second column is the realistic number of recommended specialists. So the state order is bigger, but if we competed with each other, with the Lviv, Kyiv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Dnipro, it would be great. The students could choose the best option. But when the student writes IT, earth sciences, politics, everything, and then we have much smaller number of students than the maximum state order that we can count on. So the next column, the green one, this is the number of enrolled. There were some recommended people who were already recommended by the state, but turns out not everybody brings their documents in, because it was a certain reserve, backup options. Part of the children left abroad, some of them stayed here, and the parents decided that it's cheaper to pay for a contract scholarship than to fund that student to go to some regional big center, Kyiv, Kharkiv, whatever. So other 2 columns, this next column, which is how much is allocated. Of all those students that were enrolled, how many of them are purely geological specialty? And then the yellow column are those students that actually were enrolled. That doesn't mean that they were all graduated. So let me tell you that all over Ukraine, geological faculties enrolled 140 students. As Stella said, 1,300 are employed in National Academy of Sciences in earth sciences. So working 25 years in average, you need 40, 30. So 20,000 in the institute, we need 1,000 each year to have natural, fresh water. So what is the problem then? Why don't we have the necessary numbers of students? So demographic situation, of course. Less graduate, 15 to 20% shorter number of graduates from high school. War, of course. Well, that's something we have to deal with. Now, the current situation is in geology. Since there is restructuring and the state plans are being decreasing, that leads to loss of prestige of our specialty from 40 to 60% based on our data of our students are dynasties. So children who inherited those who already work. So if the industry does not working, then they go to some other industry. So we believe that current interest is increased interest to minerals and all those and all those agreements with the U.S. So we hope we will increase number of students. So we'll see. So there's another thing here. I took some data starting from 2019, and you can see a slide here which says how many students were enrolled by each of these academia in Ukraine. So the number of bachelors is Shevchenko University #1, but that's historically. Everybody got smaller, but we, since we are central, we decreased a little less. So an interesting situation with master studies. About 50% of the bachelors go to masters. So sometimes Shevchenko has up to 70%. So the trend in some academia, let me draw your attention to, of course, the biggest state commissioning is Shevchenko and those who are around the state order. So it's an interesting dynamic of the upper part of the slide. Last year, you see the state order. Shevchenko is now #3 in number of students, even #4 in the number of students enrolled. The state order is the biggest part of it, chunk of it. So, but for instance, Lviv University last year had enrolled, having the state order, 29, but they enrolled 66 to the contract. Since there's a big competition, so the masters can be enrolled by any bachelors who have any education, like science, humanitarian, technological. Ivano-Frankivsk Oil and Gas University enrolled last year, having 21 for state order, has enrolled 61 contract students. These real people, and why they went there. Well, so to the right, you can see the results of last year. Last year, they increased the requirements threshold. So the unified exam, foreign language skills, all those competencies. So now University of Shevchenko is #1 again, but number of contracts, you see Ivano-Frankivsk has a big percentage, Lviv, and so on. So now this next situation, one more slide. At the bottom here in green, the cost of scholarship contract meaning. Because the state does compensate about 80,000 hryvnias per year per one budget scholarship. So bachelor, masters, and so on. So if some academia are dumping prices, I want to ask you, is it realistic to train a high-skilled professional in 40,000 hryvnia? So I was traveling in Warsaw with one of the British citizens who was an IT guy, and he was telling me that in any university in Britain, regardless on what department you are enrolling, the pay is quite big, but he was complaining. He says, I was only shown a computer that I have at home, but the physicists, they were shown a much more sophisticated equipment. So to train a geologist, you need some kind of materials, laboratories, equipment, state-of-the-art field experience, and just the same amount is given for mechanical mathematicians, IT, lawyers, economists. So much less spending, but it takes a lot to train them. So considering this, the academia, why I show that the colleagues are enrolling not so many people. Because the cost for training is changing. Now there's only Lviv University, Geology faculty, and Geology faculty of Kyiv University. The rest of them are called differently. They are the Institute of Nature and Science, of Tourism. So what are they doing? Or just a faculty of natural sciences. So it's a disbalance. Considering this, we need to seriously cooperate with businesses, because there are a lot of companies coming to us asking to provide experts, and we've seen how many experts are graduating in Ukraine. So if we hired 140 per all Ukraine, about half of them, will graduate and will go to work as the specialists. Well, the rest will be just changed. They will change the profession maybe. So we have to train them. Of course, the universities themselves, even through funding, they won't be able to do it. So there are positive examples. In particular, as Maksym was telling us, how Ukrgazvydobuvannya works. They signed a memorandum between Naftogaz Ukraine and the 9 different excellence centers. There's an Vityk academy that we're cooperating with. But without the more active participation of businesses, our specialty, our will diminish. And as I showed you some examples from Shevchenko University, we've crossed some psychological barrier where we hired when we had less than 100 students in 2023. And in the last year, we've seen 89 students. And it's not only geological specialty. That's geodesics and zoning, another specialty. We started training them on GIS technologies. So it's more of a real estate related job. So we are expecting this kind of response, and it's not only our problem. It's great that we had an idea to create brand rooms and different organizations. So now it is about having a twinning program between Shevchenko. It's a master's program. It's now in negotiations. And so the conclusions that I can make, that this international cooperation leads to us being understood better by our foreign colleagues, but inside we don't have much variation. And only if the teacher is actively engaged, we can understand what is the actual task. So if the cooperation will remain as it is now, we have diminishing numbers of academia that will train geologists because it's costly and it requires significant effort. So a number of academia has stabilized because of security measures. They built shelters, like we are now doing the same in Kyiv Natural Reserve. Thanks for the colleagues from Ivano-Frankivsk and Lviv. They help to host our students so that we're not overcrowded. And so you're all invited for cooperation because the university right now is not only a place to train experts. It's a serious scientific institution. We have 19 doctor studies and PhD studies. We have a doctor thesis in geophysics. Our publications, geology series, is in Scopus and Book of Science. So we're pretty much interested with organizations. So thank you so much. I hope we will have cooperation in the future. Thank you so much. Thank you, Serhii. If we have any questions, let's have them now. If not, then we will have a coffee break now.
Для тих, хто не прочитав програму, кава-брейк 15 хвилин у нас буде. Шановні колеги, прошу уваги, продовжуємо нашу роботу.
So we continue the work of this conference. We have somewhat less the number of participants, but we hope we have viewership on YouTube. So we'll continue through the media as well as here in the audience. So the next presentation, Mariia Kurylo, who is the scholar at the Institute of Geology, Kyiv National University, PhD in geology, expert of Ukrainian Geology Union, and national trainer in framework classification of mineral deposits. About prospects of using the international assessment standards in the Ukrainian practice of using the mineral deposits. Thank you and greetings to all the participants and the Union of Geologists for an invitation, for opportunity to talk about this topic as international standards. It's about development of our geology industry in general, because we understand that with these questions are tied directly to opportunities of investment, creating the high-tech facilities that cost quite a lot. And all the geological information that we have, what we have and that we're creating, it has to be clear and understandable, not only to us, it has to be understood to all the stakeholders who are interested in development of our geology. So it's a growth point, it's our national growth point, and within international projects of Geologists Union, we participate the Geological Service of EU, together with our national partners, European partners. Wherever we're designing a lot of tools, the bridging documents, as we know them, so that we all in Europe, and not only in Europe, have to can understand it. So it's a sort of an introduction. So what are the international standards of assessment? There are many of them. In oil and gas, there are one set of requirements. In the solid fossil fuels and minerals, it's a different one. There are tools that are created as a universal language to make unified all the other tools that historically were well developed. So none of them is better or worse. It's an important conceptual thing to understand, because in our professional environment and production and scientific and regulatory, there are a lot of disputes and disagreements in terms of what is the best system of classification, what is the most acceptable for Ukraine. In the oil and gas industry, they often say, why do we have to use the UN system? And so these arguments are going on for years. I found some solution, and my colleagues in GSU have supported that, because it's not about argument. Because we cannot say what is better or worse. We have our own tradition, we have our own experience, we're implementing our traditions and harmonizing with the international standards. And this is where, that's our benefit, our competitive edge, so to say. I think you agree that it's better to know 5 languages than to know none or just one. So I'm saying it's like speaking English because it's the only language you know, but there's many, the more tools we have accessible to us, the deeper we have our national system implemented. It's very flexible, in fact. And I can say so. And the state service is very flexible. We are trying, we're doing our best to create the best conditions to implement this. So my proposal is to get to know, to get to understand what standards are suited for which tasks, because there can be different tasks and tools of assessment. So that's the key important thing, and we then have to use it according to our tasks. So we're looking for investors. We're increasing the status and maturity of our projects. We want to use the best information, the clear skies standards that include a lot of regional standards for solid fuels. So SPI and PRMS we use for oil and gas. And what's good is that within all those standards, together with UNFC, the standards of the UN standards that we mentioned, they are together forming a lot of new systems, new standards and for projects. I wouldn't say that they are not typical, but mostly it's the renewables for geothermal projects, for pumping CO2 or hydrogen. The new standards are, so to say, united. Nobody is splitting them or trying to make them understandable for everyone. So the diversity goal is because there are a lot of stakeholders using our minerals. So everybody has their own risks and objectives, and they often are on opposite sides. If we talk about local communities, we talk about how interested in that. And I believe that all those international standards, so not only assessment, resources, maturity, but these are the tools of subtaining the risks. What else should be improved in the project to achieve between all the stakeholders this situation where it's beneficial for all? So it's a win-win situation. So they give us understanding what's wrong, what's right. If everything is okay with your social license, like in our NFC that is represented in cubes here on slide, earlier there was only economical liability. Now it's environmental, social, and economical viability that are being assessed. And our traditions are, we're trying to simplify them sometimes, but here the international standards can really help us. So if you have deposits, great. If you have even more resources, it's even better. If you have to have social license, you have to have some clear, understandable plan for all the stakeholders of what exactly you want to do. And using these classification systems, in fact, these environmental, social liabilities, they are in the modifying factor of clear sky. So the resource has to be available. It can be ideal from geological point of view. It can be very economically viable and full of liquidity. But if you don't have access to some various reasons, then we won't be able to move. Move where? Well, all these scales of international standards, they are helping us to understand it. I'm going to speed up. So this is the scale of risks.
Yeah. The risks that we have and the risks that which we need to be aware of. And then it will become clearer why all of these diversified international standards exist. Some of them exist for investors, others to explain in clear and understandable language to the local population or to other levels of regional stakeholders, for example, to make sure that it's clear not only for subsoil users and geologists, for for the people with technical preparation, because you must admit it that most often our mining or geological or technical information that we operate most of the time is not very clear to average people, which is why getting some approvals from them or support is so hard to do. Previously and formerly, it used to be our cutting edge. However, right now we are faced with another challenge. And failing to see it or denying it will cost us a lot. Recently, environmental social governance used to be at the top. And this is not an issue of emissions, although it is included in there. But believe me, this is more to do with the social licenses and the need or a challenge for us to be understandable and comprehensible, not only for our peers and counterparts, but also for our investors who are ready to pay. We must admit it and be mindful of that. We have to be clear and understandable to the people that provide access to the resources via property rights to their land allotments. We must also be aware that these proprietary rights are present everywhere. So this is not only our problem, this is the problem that our Canadian and American counterparts also have to deal with, because they say we explore fantastic deposits, but then we look into the land allotments, which usually are possessed by a lot of people. It's very difficult to understand. We don't have the access to the resource, what to call them. We still call them deposits, reserves. Yet the international standards, there are different opportunities to identify them in different terminology, to show and identify that something can be wrong with the access. The blue graph shows you the range of risks as of last year. This year, some new risks have emerged, which have pushed out different systems and standards, forcing them to amend. You can see capital ranking first, because the question is who's going to pay for it all, for all of these projects of extreme importance. And there are some other items at the top which justify that in subsoil use area, we're dealing with depleted resources. So whatever we do, this resource is going to diminish further, and we have to understand what will happen when the date for the depletion comes completely. Maybe we can extend those terms, who knows. Now, with our European counterparts, we are participating in projects for depleted gas and oil deposits and fields, creating storages. It's very early stage, but this is an extension of the cycle. Therefore, these risks we must be conscious of them. So the goal that we are pursuing is not only to explore a deposit and then to forward it for industrial exploitation and development. There are lots of different challenges that geologists are faced with. At the previous workshop, there was a friend of mine who kept repeating, a geologist is not supposed to be merely a geologist. Yes, he's supposed to be a geologist, but he's faced with a great number of other risks which are impossible to deal with without specialists. Now, we thank Mr. Georgi Ilyich, who implemented immediately for us this UNFC. We may agree or disagree. However, now we find ourselves in a state of a much higher state of classification development, because we're used to this three-digit code. But in Italy, which is a witness of our classification being implemented in Europe, still UNFC is a single tool to run all of the databases for deposits and for subsoil facilities. The majority have never seen these three-digit codes, and sometimes it's hard for them to understand how to transit to them. Now we have been operating this experience for 20 years. This classification has been used for 20 years in our country. We're used to it. It's clear to us. We are disseminating our experience, because for other European countries, sometimes it's something like Chinese, So for us, it's usual. It's just another language that we can use to express ourselves fully. And another compliment for our work at the Union of Geologists, at the GSU, and the State Commission on Reserves. Nearly in all of the commissions, we have these bridging documents. It's not a one-page document, but if you want to translate something from Kryrsko into UNFC, we have bridging documents. We have comparability of all of the criteria and documents. If we want to transfer or translate our old ABC classifications, this can also be done. The only thing is, everyone agrees, and I think this is about the understanding of geological information. Automatically, it's very hard to do. If we need to verify everything very quickly, we need to understand the limits of this verification. Ideally, we have to consider every facility separately. I simply think that these are different scopes of classification and classification, which one way or another faced in our practice. So sometimes in our investment fund, we have 10 different facilities to choose just one of them, and we are not allowed 5 years to do that. I'm only allowed 1 week to draw my conclusion. The same goes here. Depending on the preconditions of our work and the purposes that we are pursuing, we can apply the suitable, the most appropriate instrument, which will be most fitting and suitable for this particular case. And all of this diversity of international standards, in this case, I'll be talking about just another comparison. And as a conclusion, so they enable us to assess and classify some non-typical facilities. Typical ones are the ones that we are developing. For example, our iron ore deposit with magnite quartzes. It can be easily translated from any standard. And by the way, they have already accumulated technical reports on numerous things and different classification principles. But it's quite another story for us. It's novel for us, but we still have a case when reserves were approved at the National Commission. We took into account all of the standards, both our national and the UNFC one, and different classes and categories were approved according to Kryrsko template. So if in technical terms you can do it and rationalize that, the Commission will include it. This is our experience, and it's very positive. Look, if we take international standards for investment, Kryrsko, JORC, and UNI, 143 SPE, PRMS, they, in comparison, it's an important thing to remember. They do not allow us to account for the peculiarities that we have in our resource base, how to keep account of that, how assess facilities which right now are in the temporarily occupied territories or are inaccessible for whatever other reasons. I have already participated in negotiations with different qualified personnel. According to JORCO, NSP, UNI, we cannot consider them at all because this is not an accessible resource for us, so we just exclude them regardless of the degree of their preparation or exploration. NI does not consider them. However, UNFC allows us to classify our information, however, present this as an inaccessible resource. So all of this variety of instruments will be chosen depending on the task, facility, available geological information. So it's an example of a facility which is right now in a temporarily occupied territory. These are rare earth minerals. And another advantage point, it's a possibility with the help of international standards to assess facilities which are unusual for us, not resources, not reserves, but all of it together with the infrastructure, with the project solutions, assessing the entire scope of the project. They can be very much comprehensive, and I have presented here some of the cases that we have discussed with Maksym, Olehovich, when we have reserves, for example, of gas, some residue of that in the same area, in the same field. There may also be reserves of salt with another degree of exploration, another degree of the project maturity. And at the same time, we can also get some minerals from some byproducts, critical minerals, if their concentrations are sufficient. So thus, in one area, how can we assess all of these things? If I want to do it using our internal instruments, I will have to sit down and do it separately for salt, for byproducts, for different kinds of CRNN byproducts, and all of these things will have to be done separately. However, international standards allow us to assess that within the scope of one project and see some things which are not cost-effective or include the things that will add efficiency, cost efficiency. So this will contribute to the comprehensive project solution. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak about this topic, and I think that the implementation and proper understanding of all international standards, which are significant for us and allow us to attract investments and have investments not only with the investments, those can be the holders of technologies and various other kinds of support that we can enjoy, will allow us to take advantage of these opportunities. So I'm really supportive of what's taking place in our legal framework, that we have to be able to use them alongside our classifications. It's good. It's no good replacing them with each other because they are varied, and this, which is why they're helpful and useful to us. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Ms. Mariia. Do you, dear audience, do you have any questions to ask Mariia? No questions. Everything is clear with this framework classification. Fantastic. And the last speech, which has been announced, it's supposed to take place online unless anything stops us technology-wise. It will be delivered by the Union of Geologists of Ukraine member, the head of the expert council of this NGO, Ivanova Olena. Then the title is Development of Network Partnership Cooperation, Experience of the NGO Union of Geologists of Ukraine, and the presentation of the partnership project of the global digital platform OneGeo.com. So the floor is yours. I hope you can hear me. Yes, we can. Thank you. Thank you, Victor Volodymyrovich. Greetings. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I cannot see my presentation on the screen. It's just gone off the screen. If I may, I would like to see it on the screen. My name is Oleh Ivanova. I'm the head of the Expert Council of the Union of Geologists of Ukraine, NGO, and I would like, first of all, to thank for this opportunity to speak and raise with you some of the backstage issues of the Union about how it is building its partnership network and ensures its organizational support. We will look into the experience of the Union's participation in different international projects, and let us look at the possibility of scaling up our international collaboration, in particular, utilizing the opportunities of OneGeo.platform. Some technical difficulties. So the Union is the organizational hub of the expert network. It coordinates connections and ties between the specialists at both the national and international levels, and it runs projects, communications, develops professional connections and bonds, infrastructure of knowledge, and promotes the resource involvement and represents the our national community at the international arena. The internal circle in this scheme are the active members of the Union, the independent experts and teams of profile institutions and plants. At this operational level, we exchange knowledge and implement projects jointly. The external circle represents the international partners of the Union, professional associations, network communication hubs, and the ties at this level open up to opportunities to enter into international projects. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide shows the strategic importance of the international partners of our Union. These are some leading institutions which shape the global agenda. in geological science, and among them is the network of the European Geological Sciences. And today, Ms. Julie Hollis was speaking, the European Federation of Geologists, which was also welcoming us on behalf of its head, the American Association of Oil and Gas Extractors, European Raw Material Association, European Association of Geoengineers, etc. So the network of our union covers more 3,000 specialists and partnership structures, which it is a part of, which in its turn unifies thousands of professionals, thus shapes a powerful unity for transversal cooperation. Next slide, please. Around which global goals and challenges is the strategy of the Union shaped? It's worth underscoring once again the growing role of geosciences in shaping the global agenda and their contribution in the implementation of Sustainable Goal Development approved by the UN. So according to the recent reports, the role of the geosciences is growing, which was mentioned today by our European partners. Numerous scientific publications speak in favor of that. My favorite ones are presented on the slide. And accordingly, the next slide shows, let's change it. You will see infographics of the European GeoSurveys, which visualizes the key trends of contemporary geosciences. Ms. Kurylo has just said that contemporary geology goes beyond it transcends the boundaries of conventional geology. It already transforms into an intersectoral communication for promoting the solution of different issues that exert influence on environmental protection. The experts in this area provide their expertise and recommendations and shape interdisciplinary projects. And on the basis of data supplied by them, integrated databases are shaped, and which contributes greatly to environmental stewardship. Next slide, please. When analyzing the global trends and challenges, this is what's happening inside the geosciences. The Union is strategizing all the time within its operations and approving its decisions, particularly the decisions which took place back in 2017 to consecutively implement the regulations of its strategy for the years 2018 through 2025, which is called Geology for the European Future of Ukraine. Thus, it implements international projects which are connected with the efficient and well-balanced exploitation of natural resources, and the interim results of this work have been highlighted in the article published in the magazine called Geologists of Ukraine. You can see its title. It's about the innovative contributions of the Union in the scientific and exploration space of the EU. Next slide, please. Before 2019, the Union had become a member of 4 grant programs funded by the EU, which were to do with systematization of geohydrological knowledge and development of cooperation in minerals area, in extracting geothermal energy or generating this energy. Next slide, please. During the next 4 years, the Union was involved in the implementation of another 4 projects to do with enhancing raw material independence and security of Ukraine, improving gender balance in geosciences, optimizing generating geothermal energy, and issues of social licenses in this area. This was before the war, and let me note and point out that since the point of the deterioration of the situation, so to say, the field where the projects used to be implemented, no project obligations were violated, even though we had numerous changes in the personnel turnover took place. Next slide, please. During the current project, the Union is involved in the implementation of another 3 projects. Project 6, which is to do with preservation of the renewable energy, geological preservation of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and geothermal generation. Another project is aimed at the sustainable extraction of geothermal energy from special fluids, and another project aiming the EU goals. This is a large scope strategic initiative. Several speakers mentioned it today, and this initiative is to this initiative contribute several institutions in Ukraine, and in this project the level of unions employment grows from associated status to an equitable member of the consortium. So nowadays the results of the partnerships of the Union with the European Federation and EuroGeoSurveys is the same as participating in 11 project consortiums, which means that more than 250 other partners are involved in the implementation of these projects. Contemporary networks function as reputation ecosystems, and key to this area is trust and reliability of the partners. And the work within these networks requires competencies to run project, do project management, make impactful investments, making sure that the goodwill is never violated, availability of partners for them to get coordinated, first of all on behalf of the European Union, because this is the requirement of the EU, and having all of the necessary resources. So it's necessary to reach out to authoritative partnership unions, and our union is a kind of that. So the membership in this union is an opportunity to be involved in international cooperation, and the first step is, of course, the qualitative filling out application forms for membership. When we process these application forms, we can immediately invite the necessary specialists to participate in respective projects. Another important point, the initiation of successful projects requires special knowledge concerning latest trends. We have to be savvy about different new novel technologies, which is to do with framework and strategic documents, which is about the sustainable development goals of the UN. It's the Paris Climate Agreement, it's the European Green Course, it's the industrial policy of the EU, which right now goes along the lines of digitalization and green transformation lines, and some other documents. But how to encompass all of this space, despite the fact that we don't have the necessary social networks, platforms of cooperation, despite the fact that we have them, like AI, for example, but still something that will substantially is the mechanism of structurized access to the information about the global processes, the activities of global actors, about global initiatives, which provides for the need to have the holistic information environment, which will focus on sustainable development of the humanity, global challenges, transformation of the industry, establishing sustainable infrastructure, environmental protection. So this environment and this platform should be the source of knowledge and be a reliable source of green enlightenment for the general public, the space to shape partnership and attracting the general public in the implementation of these changes. And this platform has been established to date. So please, next slide. Being aware of the need for contemporary digital instruments to ensure effective cooperation, the Union, as a digital community of geologists, at the invitation of General Geology in 2022, joined the elaboration of OneGeo.com platform. Its goal is to create an open digital space for global interdisciplinary and intersectoral cooperation. The platform is implemented under the slogan to establish the blossoming, prosperous world via the power of human intelligence. And some of the main topical areas here is the enlightened humanity, Earth, human-friendly green industry, sustainable human habitats, and preserving nature, wild nature in particular. Next slide, please. Now I would like us to have a holistic vision of this digital space created. So now we can see the homepage of this platform. So let me quickly guide you through the platform for you to understand how this digital space operates. So the design has been executed in the color scheme, which is natural for environment. The interface is laconic, and this minimalism, the style, was chosen consciously. And we refused different kinds of graphics in order to highlight the senses. So you can see the motto of this platform. You can see you can change the font to dark. You can also go for your personal e-account. You can log in and log out easily. So interface is organized in 3 columns. The central area is the preview and news feed with all of the dates, brief descriptions, tags, media content, I mean photo and video imagery highlighted in order to draw your attention to them. When you press the title of the publication, the user immediately is taken to another page, and we can see additional media materials and references to the original source of the information cited. On the left is the main menu organized for thematical navigation, and the right-hand navigation also contains different kinds of filters for you to screen the information. Footer allows you to go through legal policies, references to copyright, contact details, and there's a button to go for promotion for those who would like to make voluntary contributions or gain a status of a partner. Then we'll move on to the target audience of the platform. Next slide, please. The target audience is 2 groups of users, the first of which is professional institutions who provide the content, political parties, parliaments, country governments, scientific and educational institutions, enterprises, professional institutions, etc. These are legal entities, by the way, which have their own web resources and generate their own content. When acquiring a partnership status, they have a chance to post on this platform different kinds of annotations of their own content, thus being able to establish contents with other participants on this platform.
The right to publish on the platform is only reserved to professional institutions, because that will safeguard that it's a reliable and valid content, and the content providers are responsible for what they publish. Second group is platform visitors as consumers of the content. Actually, all users have access to search in the content, the search engine. So platform on Geocom works as a global, cross-sectoral partnership project. It unites the aforementioned professional institutions and is called to publicize their activity, those activities that are serving the goal of improving the future for humanity and our planet. At the same time, the content they're creating raises attention of the visitors to their initiatives. So such content works well for target audience to shape their shared vision of the better future for humanity, in better priorities for development, finding solutions to challenges. So a wider public, the visitors of the platform, while they review the content, they have an opportunity to better understand global processes and challenges, to learn about actual events, institutions, increasing their social activity. They also can join in the green movements, professional unions, and in such a way the wider public can support green projects and initiatives, have a democratic influence on the election campaigns in their countries, to facilitate civil control on international commitments in order to improve the influence of the public and the processes. The platform organizes thematic forums and surveys. And so the mission of OneGeocom is to unite intellectual efforts of active world community to determine the direction of the further humanity development, creating our own guidelines, aggregating information of the partners. OneGeocom functions as the green online encyclopedia, has a digital ecosystem that unites the different fields of knowledge. The content on the platform is starting the era of green education, orienting the people for their better, for their social activity, the green way of life, creating a friendlier environment by tackling social challenges, building digital communities, retaining the territory of wild nature and biodiversity. So I'd like to add a couple of words regarding the range of the topical structure of the platform. So each of these main topical sections represented in the left menu, it has up to 4 levels of digitalization. I will not be showing the entire structure, just to tell you that within the green and digital industry, there's a section, Industry 4.0, its component, Clean and Safe Energy, and this component has other parts, geo, solar, wind, ocean energy, bioenergy, rivers, and if we go to the content that is interesting for geologists, well, the interconnection of all the topics necessary to know for geologists, as we mentioned, but as part of the friendly, life-friendly Earth. So, planetary topics, fossil fuels, oil and gas, mineral resources, all the interesting topics are there. Renewables has been represented. The whole structure should be reviewed, not only part of it. So a short resume on characteristics and functionality of interface. The platform is open for visiting. It's a free resource intended for a global audience. If there are some language barriers, it can be auto-translated in the browser. The software is suitable to use on desktop and with some limitations on mobile devices. So viewing such systems requires no registration, but attaining a partner status, that requires authorization. And after that, they have opportunity to publish content and talk to other partners through electronic document. Left navigation menu suggests 5 main topical parts, 170 additional tabs to sort the information by geolocation, by period. So it also provides an ecosystem that offers to view the platforms, websites, educational content like books, analytics, training, materials, films, products or services, different professional awards, information on that. So anyone can find this. So thanks to this, you can fine-tune your feed to the interests and needs you need. So current capacity of the platform, it demonstrates sustainable growth of attendance from 10 to 20% monthly. We have now about 9,000 visits to the platform, and the monthly attendance is about 1,500 visits. So that has become possible thanks to the content that catches attention. The general number of publications is about 5,000. Annually, there are updates in terms of 120 updates per day. Out of the topical platforms recommended for geocompany for additional learning, there are 700, and there are projects that were selected for geosciences. That's about 50 of them. And one of the most important thing now is that the platform has Ukrainian content, and it contains about 150 publications. I'd like to ask as a quick review to look at them. And to wrap up, I wanted to present to you some of the examples of this Ukrainian content. It's very varied. It's about professional interests. It's about industry-wide activities. But to understand the difficult reality that Ukraine faces due to the war and the soft power of direct broadcast, I offer you records about dramatic losses of Ukrainians for the world community to know how infrastructure is destroyed, how environmental catastrophic consequences for water resources, how the aggressor causes ecocide, national parks, forests, the demining needs, how school education is organized in the war. So what actions are discussed in Ukraine recovery. And also on the last slide, there's information about unique project, the third breath. It's an exhibition in Kyiv. It's about the emotional state of Ukrainians during the war. So please join as partners. Please use its potential to retain and develop geological activity, expand the presence of Ukrainian geologists in the global information space. Together, we are capable to make the world better. Ukraine, primarily, that deserves peace and sustainable development. Ukrainians deserve human happiness and life. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much, Oleh, for a wonderful presentation. I hope it will be useful for all the participants here in this audience, to all geologists and people who want to know more about geology. So maybe you have questions to Oleh. Feel free. So now we proceed to discussion. Proposals of leading experts and participants. In these discussions, you can express your opinions, your proposals as to the solutions and decisions that we have to make at the end of this conference. Maybe let's first read the draft decision. So, okay, so this is a proposal to first work on the draft decision. So we have different proposals, and Natalia will read them out, and I will read out the proposal of the Union of Drilling Workers of Ukraine. Hello, dear colleagues. So as for the decision of the 7th conference, about Ukrainian geology in the modern geopolitical turmoil and challenges. As created in the year 2000 in order to unite professionals in geology, hydrogeology, geophysics, engineering, and other professions in the earth sciences, the Union of Geologists of Ukraine for many years have been uniting the leaders of leading geological organizations, establishments, the state service of geology and the mineral deposits, Naftogaz Ukraine, Nadra Ukraine, and other leading organizations of Ukraine, and higher academia. In response to the global challenges of 21st century, the Union mobilizes geologists and experts in other professions of earth sciences. The Union of Geologists of Ukraine expresses genuine respect and gratitude to General Secretary of EuroGeoSurveys, Julie Hollis, the President of European Federation, David Govoni, and in their person, to all European colleagues for support of Ukraine, and also gratitude to participants of the conference, everyone who joined the discussions. The Union of Geologists of Ukraine sees the decisive role of geology in the modern geopolitical challenging situation. Geological services all over the world have been actively transforming, adapting their missions, their methods, and their objectives to resolve the modern state-of-the-art global challenges. Such evolution of geological services provide their key role in supporting sustainable development and maintaining natural resources for future generations, opens up new opportunities to resolve environmental, climate, and resource-based problems, providing stability and harmonious development of society. Now the decision of the 7th meeting of geologists. Based on these presentations, we've heard the attendees discuss the complex challenges that geology in Ukraine faces and suggested the ways to tackle them, for further work to form profile committees of experts union to approve their leadership, and with the Euro-Atlantic vector as written in the Constitution, and recognizing that Euro integration is the key condition to prepare Ukraine for entrance to EU, and at the same time a very important mechanism of sustainable development of geological industry, to activate by 2027 the participation of Ukrainian geologists and implementation of projects, creation of geological services for Europe. Considering the importance of deepening scientific relations and international cooperation, to expand the presence of Ukrainian geological institutions in a global info space, to conduct the work to join them, to connect them to the global digital platform OneGeocom as partners, recognizing the importance of contribution of separate members of the Geological Union, their contribution to geological development of Ukraine, their active participation in international projects, to present Mariia Kurylo as expert of Geologists Union of Ukraine and the national trainer of the framework Union classification to attain the title of EuroGeologist. And we recommend the other members of the Union by the first half 2025 to send your claims for other Ukrainian institutions to claim this honorary title. Then I will read the proposals of Director of the Scientific Institute, Institute of Geology of Kyiv National University, named after Shevchenko, that the state agencies should consider stepping up the preparation of geological experts to satisfy the needs of our economy in mineral material needs, to facilitate the commitments of EU, the US, and Ukraine, a strategic deposits, the Ministry of Economy should increase the state order of educational programs, bachelor and master, for specialties E4, the earth sciences. To consider E4 specialty earth sciences as high priority and protected, critically important during the martial law and during the post-war recovery of Ukraine. At the end of the meeting, we want to express the appreciation to the sponsor, Ukrainian company Nadra Group, which for 25 years has supported all the initiatives and activities of. Since Nadra Group has been exiting from service part of the businesses and changing the activity, there's a rebranding in progress. Now the company is known as General Geology, so there was no change in the sponsor. We wish General Geology success in what they do. All right, thank you, dear colleagues. I forgot to present Natalia Chernyenko, head of the management, CSO, the Union of Geologists of Ukraine, and she submitted the proposal of this meeting resolution. So we have very thorough proposal from the Union of Drill Workers of Ukraine. It's been actively working, and we're cooperating with them for quite a long time. And so they sent us these proposals. I will not be reading everything. It's a little bit it's repeating some of the points that were already mentioned, but some of them, I will read some of them. So they suggested to focus the attention on such following important strains of work. The scientific worldview, forming the scientific worldview of modern community based on the processes that are happening in our mineral deposits and their impact on human activity. So it's a general proposal, if I may. Now, more specific things, everything related to rational use of the potential deposits is reviewed as environmental impact. And then second, the mining for assets and construction of underground facilities. So, and this potential should be viewed as an alternative resolution of social and material problems on the regional level. How that, peat potential. I don't know how much it has to do with the environment, the peat potential. Well, a high priority for green transition is geothermal energy. Well, I think we can agree with that. Next, we stress the necessity to have a properly scientific foundation for new position on scientific degree, the forming of the new ideas, proposals and concepts, practical recommendations, to only do it based on deep scientific deliberation, upon wider deliberation, regardless of political views and clan interests. So what else is suggested by the colleagues? Here they write that we need to point out that the Union of Geologists of Ukraine has been actively cooperating with the Union of Drill Workers of Ukraine, who have conducted several important events to safeguard geological industry, to make the profession more prestigious, to shape a more science-based worldview based on geological data and the better training system. And so we just suggested this following decision of the management on May 12 this year for a significant contribution in facilitating fruitful cooperation of geological community to reward with the highest reward, a medal of credit for development of the drilling industry, Anna Liventseva, who for a long time was head of the management of the Geology Union, and Natalia Chernyenko is present here, who is the head of the union. So these are the proposals from the drilling workers. So proposal, of course, we support what the colleagues from drill industry said, that we will reformulate everything, will formalize it together with the former proposals sent to us previously and bring it to coherent body of work. Now discussion. Who would like to say something about so proposals, criticisms? So please state yourselves. So first of all, I was working for a while in the Geologists Union of Ukraine, and I thank you for this opportunity to participate. Could you present yourself, please? So before the war, when I was the director of Ukrainian Research Institute of mining industry, and I'm still at this position. But because the institute was in Bakhmut and was only leading with salt industry, so potassium, salts, and other types of evaporite genesis that are not being mined. So temporarily, we don't work at the moment until the moment that it will be liberated, and we will then talk about restoring the deposit.
For a while, I also worked at the Union of Geologists of Ukraine with the personnel directly when we were just beginning to go for the re-registration, which is why I'm very much grateful to Mr. Pavlo Olekseyevich. I know how much work stands behind it. When people are not at their best morale, organizing this conference today, this is a huge titanium work. And I'm really proud of the Union of Geologists of Ukraine who have pulled it off. It's a very fine staff ahead to take. Secondly, there are some issues are very important, but they were somewhat in general terms spoken about. I would like to formulate them, but I don't know how we can embed it in the list of our proposals. Now we keep being confronted with different matters when these areas of deposits with appraised mineral deposits are not in line with the reality. Mariia is probably well aware of the situation. And they keep coming up to us with the need to provide them with the consultation, subsoil users, and they have no notion of mining or geology. And our gentlemen have just been arguing about who has to deal with environment, whether it's mining or geology is more nature-minded. By my profession, I have been dealing with some minerals from the beginning till the end, and I don't see a boundary between geology, transiting into mining. All of these things are very important. They're interrelated. Subsoil users who are not savvy about these things, who have no notions of them, no documents, unfortunately, or financial requirements, contain requirements for making investment into that. So non-professionals take subsoil minerals, deal with them or treat them in a non-professional way, mishandle them, and then we end up having problems like in Solotvina and elsewhere. Which is why I would like us to somehow write some kind of an appeal when it speaks about raising professionalism in the resolutionary part. Maybe we need to submit some specific proposals concerning introducing some general provisions, for example, because it used to be like this in the past. The chief of a mining enterprise can't but be a specialist, but nowadays they take economists, financiers to go into mining, and we cannot exert influence on that, and then we have a whole lot of problems that ensue. So this is something that I would like to make a proposal about. So if the Union of Geologists can reach out to the top supreme structures in Ukraine, because I think we should have such an access, because raising professionalism, it has to be spoken out specifically. You see, I wasn't very much ready to present this final formulation, but I was just meaning to speak about it in principle, let's see whether we approve it or not, and then we will think about how to formulate it and rephrase it. More specifically, thank you very much, Ms. Larissa. A very apt proposal to submit. Please formulate it, and we will definitely take it into account, because it really does make a lot of sense. Anyone else who's willing to raise any points? Ruslan Gavriluk. I'm Deputy Head on Scientific Work at the Institute of Geological Sciences of Ukraine. Svetlana has been speaking about it. I'm also the head of the NGO called the Environmental Center of Ukraine. A few general impressions and then a proposal to submit. First of all, it's a great pleasure to see our peers, some of whom I haven't seen for many years now. In donkey's years. I used to work with them a long time ago, and this proposal submitted by Ms. Natalia is absolutely right. I used to work with her at the Institute, at the Academy of Sciences, and I'm very much happy that such people are taking care of the affairs of the Union of Geologists. These are really very fine geologists. Someone which wasn't mentioned today is the Atlas of Minerals, which is also an attainment of the Academy of Sciences and its GeoSurveys. I think it's a great attainment, which both Ms. Natalia and Professor Galitsky were involved in, and under whose leadership this project was exercised. I think that a lot of very relevant topics have been addressed today and raised, and I would really like us to pay more attention to monitoring of geological environment, because you know the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers issued on this point recently concerning monitoring, and our institute was involved in its elaboration. It's highly important. It's one of the priorities of the European Geological Surveys, and because we are now in close cooperation with BIGM, it's the French Geological Service. They're paying a lot of attention to different dangerous geological processes in underground waters, in addition to different societal things, the things that exert influence on the lives of local communities. And it strikes me that the government has planned for the resumption of financing for this monitoring. I'm not going to speculate on it, but perhaps this notion also deserves attention, at least from my perspective, as a hydrogeologist, someone who is also involved in natural conservation. It's also a great pleasure that Euro-integrational processes have been mentioned. It was a pleasure to hear it from the head of the Geosubsoil Service of Ukraine. The things that he touched upon are super important. We see that geological environment, minerals and subsoil play such a significant role for European integration of Ukraine, not only in terms of signing the minerals deal with the United States, but Europe seeing able this potential of Ukraine. We have also signed a similar agreement in shale gas, but not much is being spoken about that. So we would like our expert environment and community be more involved in critical raw materials agenda, the elaboration of the roadmap for the years 2026 and 2027 on behalf of the service of subsoil when he was talking about it. And maybe a little was mentioned about Ukraine's facility, although it was touched upon. Yet more attention needs to be drawn to the role of our expert community in fulfilling Ukraine facility. Yesterday, the Day of Europe was celebrating in Kyiv, and a big bashful event was celebrated in Ukraine. We had a lot of politicians from the former and current leadership of Ukraine. Representatives of the European Union were also featured. And in the discussions with Madam European Ambassador, we mentioned a lot this European facility as an essential element to render support to Ukraine in the efforts of Ukraine's recovery and European integration of Ukraine. These are logically interconnected processes for Ukraine. Concerning the resolution, it's hard for me to say who these resolutions should be addressed to, because, for example, from other NGO experiences which I am honored to represent here, I know that when we write these recommendations, we always say who we address them to, whether we recommend the state geosubsoil service to do that, or whether our European counterparts will have to be obliged with that. So we have to formulate these resolutions in the respective way, because speaking about all good things and criticizing all bad things is no good. Now is the time to act. Something that Mr. Pavlo said. We need to utilize the opportunities offered to Ukraine as a result of Euro integration and as part of signing the deal on minerals. Last week, Mr. Pavlo participated in the meeting of the Presidium of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, which we thank him for. And there he said it's an impetus to training the personnel, to rejuvenating, reviving our geological industry. And he also thought back to the 1990s when a lot of service companies came to Ukraine and basically they sidelined our specialists from the market. Therefore, this time we definitely need to make sure that this opportunity is used in the favor of the state. But how to formulate that probably is more of a matter to be addressing the administration, the management of our union. Thank you for your contribution. Anybody else willing to speak? Yes, you're welcome. The State Environmental Academy of Ukraine. I'm in charge of the scientific informational section of this institution, Natalia Nagornyeva. I very much thank you for the opportunity to participate in this exciting and most interesting event, where attention, among other things, was also riveted to points of environmental protection for the possibility to be familiarized with the platform. This was highly fascinating. Thank you for raising the points concerning human resources in this field. And Ms. Larissa, when she was reading the resolution part, I suppose that she was perfectly right, and Mr. Ruslan also mentioned that I think it can be addressed to the committee, to the profile committee under the Parliament of Ukraine, to introduce some amendments to the legislation to take into account all of those environmental consequences. Probably we will prepare these proposals and formulate them further and submit them to Ms. Natalia. So thanks a lot again for the most interesting and exciting and informative event and presentations, and that you have taken time and effort to do this under such difficult circumstances. Hopefully there will be very positive results coming down the line. Thank you. All right. Who's next? Good afternoon. I'm a representative of the Institute of Geochemistry and Ore Formation under the Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, Vitaly Tsukach. I'm in charge of the ore depositories in Ukraine. Thank you very much for the organization of this great forum, which has been held at the international level, which is also a great joy for us. Our institute was established and has worked in tight collaboration with the manufacturing organizations in Ukraine. That is to say, with the sub-unions of the State Geological Service of Ukraine. More than 10 years ago, this connection basically was severed, not because it was someone's desire, but because the level of funding of the State Geological Service, which probably right now is next to zero. I'm speaking about when we go to explore different depositories, we get no funding at all. For 10 years now, the scientific environment and community have been trying to make ends meet and somehow survive this difficult situation. We tried to get on board with various international projects, and in a way we managed to do so. However, taking this opportunity at this forum, we need to formulate a proposal to renew and resume on the financial basis, to renew and resume these connections between science and production, that we mustn't lose the connection between them. We must forge these bonds. We mustn't forget about one another. Currently, we have a certain number of orders which come from private mining companies and other firms. However, they only reach out to us in cases they have very pressing points to handle. So the proposal is, somehow we need to formulate it, the recovery of the connections between science and production at the level of national and international cooperation. Somehow we need to speak about these things and how to realistically bring about this reunification. Another point to make today, I have already been speaking about that with my peers. In the presentations I've heard, in some context it was mentioned, critical and strategic minerals. From my perspective, this is slightly incorrect, improper. In this regard, we need to do some proper policy making. The strategic deposits of minerals in our Ukrainian understanding, these are the minerals which we own, which we can supply to the market as a raw material, because we position ourselves as a raw material country, and the policies we undertake in this regard are respective. And if we take the definitions of the European Commission, strategic ones are the ones that the EU requires in order to ensure for the development of its economy, the fields of high productive, highly efficient, high technology industries. So again, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this forum. All the best. Thank you, Mr. Vitaly. Very relevant proposals will definitely take into account in the draft resolution part of today's conference. Anyone else willing to speak? Mr. Fedorin? Yes, hello. Good afternoon. I would also like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this event. Very interesting presentations. I'm very much pleased. My name is Serhii Kadurin. I'm a representative of Odessa National University. Now I'm the chief of the chair of maritime geology and all the fields which are to do with that. paleontology, among other things. I'm a representative of an academic institution, so what is important for us is the employment of our graduates. And the connection with the production mentioned is a highly valuable thing. We've had some experience when just a few years ago our facility near the Black Sea was very active, so closer to the end of an academic year, we would usually organize tea parties when the chiefs of different exploration groups would come to us. We would sit down together to mark and celebrate the end of the academic year, and we would speak to them about what professionals they needed, and they would articulate to us and say, we're going to have such and such project where we will need the people who would know electronic mapping technologies, and we would say, oh yes, we have a few people that we can offer to you, and we will guide them in such a way that next year when they're preparing their diploma papers, we will definitely direct this along the lines of geoinformation systems. At one point they said they had also a project on the northern slope of one of the shields in the territory of Ukraine, and we needed people on mapping, and we said, okay, we will provide you with a specialist. We prepared such a specialist, and this person already had a place to go and be employed. So this was a kind of a system of workshops or seminars in tight collaboration with the representatives of manufacturing and production facilities. So I would like to offer a proposal, maybe on the basis of the Union of Geologists. We would like to set up such an interagency workshop at least once a year where the representatives of academia, different scientific units and production enterprises will meet together once a year, at least for one day, to mix and mingle, to speak about the needs, opportunities, proposals. So this is a proposal to include it in order to initiate this seminar network in the mineralogy area of science. Thank you very much, Mr. Serhii. Yes, we have some experience at Kyiv University in particular. We have such a fair of vacancies held when we have the day of the open doors. People come and they tell us what they need, what kind of graduates they need. All right, okay, anyone else willing to speak? Are there any more willing ones? If not, then let me give the floor for the final remarks to the President of the Union of Geologists of Ukraine, Mr. Zagorodnyuk. Thanks a lot to the most steadfast, most motivated participants of today's event, members of our conference, for sitting here and waiting until the very end. Let me say the following. The two YouTube channels right now are broadcasting our conference, one in the Ukrainian language, another one in the English language. We would like to thank our interpreters for that. We are being watched by very many because we had a special invitation sent to our European network counterparts, so some foreign audience are watching us here, and Ukrainian counterparts likewise. Ukrainian professionals are on our side today too, so the audience is much wider than the people that we can see here gathered in this hall. So I still want to thank you for your physical presence ensured, because the people who are creating, they're providing their moral support and boost to us. So a huge thank you to you for that. Probably in my welcoming remarks, I kind of omitted, I should have drawn more attention to that. I mean, I breached upon it, but I should have probably formulated more clearly. Because all of the proposals that have just been voiced by our colleagues They all are highly relevant. But look, in fact, this conference will have its extension. Holding it makes the following sense. We have invited the organizations where geologists work and employed various public, state-owned organizations, mining organizations, environmental public organizations. We have listened to the information presented about personnel training. We have heard it from the national trainer who has gone through a special European training due to our connections with different geological organizations based in the EU. You have heard it from the representatives of the Union of Geologists of Ukraine, but this is just part one. You have listened to all of us. However, part two, which is also remarked about in the resolution part of our conference, in part one of its resolution, that we as the Union of Geologists, because it's the only organization that unites all, so to say, organizations, scientific, public, state-run organizations, academia, so our union unites all of the geologists in the country. So on the basis of this union, we are going to establish the so-called committees, thematic committees that we have just heard about. And we will offer our speakers to chair these committees. And then we will begin to develop specific recommendations to governments, and not only them, to start sourcing finance and get integrated in the scientific global scientific and academic spaces. And thus, this event today is just raising issues. However, handling and addressing those issues will be taking place within committees. It's a huge amount of work which will take more than a year. Because these congresses, they usually take place every 4 years. Over the last 25 years of the Union's existence, today is the 7th one, so we have a vast amount of work lying ahead of us. So today we have heard about many challenges posed before the Ukrainian geological community, and then we are going to roll up our sleeves and start working on that. So please submit your proposals to the Union of Geologists of Ukraine. Please send these recommendations to the email account of our union. We will include you on the committees, and let us together save our national geological industry. Thank you for your physical presence, attention, active participation. A huge thank you for that. And lastly,
we want to invite you for the reception dedicated to the 7th Conference of Geologists in Ukraine to our office in Geologists Union. It's 5 minutes from here, and so it's Tereshinkiivska Street 13, and so there's all kinds of tasty things waiting for you. You're all invited in this little reception. Thank you so much, and have a great day. we have exceeded the agenda for today. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll make a joint photo together. Thank you so much once again for coming over here and actively participating. Everyone who joined, thank you so much. And peaceful sky. Just one word. You know, it's important. The whole technical team, the interpreters, the technicians, it wouldn't have happened without them. So thanks a lot to Ukrinform team and our interpreters. And see you again.